Hello, and thanks for joining Prism English.
Today, I'm going to tell you a true story. A man returned a wallet 30 years after he took it. It was just an old wallet, but inside it was a debt and a chance to redeem himself. Let's begin. It was a cold Thursday morning in November when he walked into the police station. Not rushed, not nervous, just quiet. He wore a dark brown coat that had seen better days, a wool scarf loosely draped around his neck, and shoes that left faint traces of dried mud on the tiled floor. The officer at the front desk barely looked up. "Can I help you, sir?" The man nodded slowly. His voice, when it came, was soft. "I need to return something I took a long time ago." The officer glanced at him more carefully. Older man, mid-50s, maybe early 60s, gray stubble, tired eyes, but calm, very calm. "What exactly are you returning?" The man reached into his coat pocket and placed a worn leather wallet on the counter. Faded, cracked at the edges, a ghost of something once valuable. The officer raised an eyebrow. "You found this?" The man shook his head. "No, I took it 30 years ago." Silence. The kind of silence that makes clocks seem louder than they are. The officer studied the man again, then, carefully, picked up the wallet with gloved hands. "Do you mind waiting here?" The man simply nodded and sat down on the bench by the wall. He placed his hands on his knees and stared straight ahead, as if waiting for something far heavier than judgment.
30 years earlier. He had no name back then, at least not one anyone cared to remember. To the world, he was just that homeless guy behind the gas station. Dirty coat, ragged blanket, a duffel bag filled with bottles and regret. He hadn't always been like that. There had been a life before. School, a mother, books, ambition. But addiction eats things quietly, not all at once, but in pieces. First time, then job, then home, then hope. By the time he was 26, he was living behind a liquor store dumpster, begging for spare change and warmth. That night, the night it happened, he wasn't looking for trouble. He was just cold, so cold. He saw the man drop the wallet by mistake. A young guy in a suit, talking on a cell phone, rushing into a cab. The wallet slipped from his coat pocket and landed by the curb. Our man, cold, hungry, invisible, saw it. He hesitated, then picked it up. He walked back behind the dumpster, opened it slowly, and his heart stopped. Inside, $320 in crisp bills, 2 credit cards, a driver's license, a photo of a woman and a baby smiling. He stared at that photo for a long time, longer than he stared at the money. Then he put the photo back in the wallet, zipped the bills into his duffel bag, and kept the wallet in his coat. He told himself he'd return it. Just need the money tonight, just tonight. But he didn't return it. Not the next day, not the next week, not ever. back to the present. An hour had passed at the police station. The wallet had been taken for verification. The man waited, silent, his hands still folded. He hadn't moved once. Finally, a second officer approached, younger, eyes sharp but not unkind. "Sir, we identified the wallet. It belongs to a man named David Harris. He was reported missing in 1993. That's 31 years ago." The older man nodded. "I know." "You were the last one who saw the wallet?" "I didn't know his name. Until now." The officer sat across from him. "Why return it now, after so long?" The man took a long breath, and then, for the first time, said something that didn't sound like an answer, but a confession. "Because I thought I'd buried that part of me. But some things don't stay buried."
He didn't spend the money all at once. No, he wasn't that careless. $320 felt like a fortune back then. Enough to buy a week's worth of food, enough to sleep indoors for a few nights, enough to feel human again. But something else came with it, something colder than hunger: guilt. He tried to silence it with alcohol, distractions, denial. But each night, as he lay on thin motel beds or cardboard blankets, the same image haunted him. The photo of the woman and the baby. Were they waiting for the man who dropped the wallet? Did they go hungry that night? Were they safe? He didn't know. And that, not knowing, was the weight he carried for 30 decades. Over time, the money ran out, but the memory didn't. He tried returning the wallet several times, walked up to police stations, even looked up names in phone books when public libraries still had them. But each time, something stopped him. Shame, cowardice, the fear of being seen not as a man, but a thief. So he kept it. Not to steal, but to remember. He wrapped the wallet in cloth and kept it at the bottom of his suitcase, hidden under layers of clean shirts and folded regret. Every year, on the same week he found it, he would take it out, look at the photo again, and whisper, "I'm sorry. I haven't forgotten." A turning point. In his late 30s, he got clean. It wasn't dramatic. No one gave him a miracle. He just woke up one day and realized if he didn't stop, he wouldn't live long enough to feel forgiven. So he worked. Odd jobs, night shifts. He lived in shelters, then cheap rooms, then shared apartments. He saved, and slowly he built the life. Not a glamorous one, but honest. He worked as a school janitor for nearly 20 years. Children never knew his name. Teachers barely noticed. But he scrubbed every floor with care, wiped every desk like it held dreams. And each paycheck, he set aside $10. Not for himself, but for a debt that never stopped growing. A debt of the soul.
A discovery. It was a winter evening when he saw it. An article, printed in a local newspaper, left on a bench at the bus stop. Headline: Cold Case, 30 years since the disappearance of David Harris. His heart stopped. He read every word. David Harris,
age 31 when last seen. A consultant, a father, went missing in 1993 after leaving work. Presumed dead. Family never found closure. The article included a photo. Same man, same eyes, same smile as in the wallet. And next to him in the photo, the same woman and a child. Older now. The woman had gray in her hair. The child had grown up. And at the bottom, if you have any information, contact Detective Laura Ames, Cold Case Unit. He folded the article, placed it inside the wallet, and finally knew it was time. Back to the station. Detective Laura Ames walked in slowly. She looked like someone who'd seen too many unanswered questions and wasn't afraid to ask more. She took a seat across from him. "You're the man who returned the Harris wallet?" He nodded. I found it a long time ago." "You found it in 1993, that's what we've gathered." "Yes." "Why now?" The man took a shaky breath. "I've lived a small life. Quiet. Simple. I don't want to die with this still buried." She studied him. Not like a cop. Like a person. "Do you think this makes you a criminal?" "No," he said. "I think this makes me unfinished." She said nothing for a while. Then asked, "May I ask, what did you do with the money?" He smiled, barely. "I used it to eat, to sleep, to survive. But I never touched another man's wallet again. I kept it, though. Carried it like penance." Laura looked down at her notes, then said softly, "You may not have known this, but David Harris's body was found 10 years ago, in a wooded area outside the city. He wasn't murdered. He had a heart attack, died before help arrived." The man closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were wet. I thought I caused it. I thought he went back looking for the wallet, or maybe his family suffered because of me." "You didn't," she said gently. "He never made it home, but the wallet, the gesture, it matters."
A week later, he received a phone call. The voice on the other end was calm, kind, cautious. "Mr. Blake, my name is Emily Harris. I believe you returned something that once belonged to my father." He froze. He had expected coldness, anger, silence. But not this. Yes," he said. "I'm sorry for everything." There was a pause. Then Emily spoke again, gently. "Would you be willing to meet me?" They met at a small coffee shop by the river. It was quiet, modest, like both of them. Emily was in her late 30s now, dressed in soft colors. There was something tired in her eyes, but not hardened. Blake, that was his name, finally revealed, arrived 5 minutes early. He had shaved, wore his best shirt, carried nothing but the wallet, now sealed in a plastic pouch by the police. She walked in, sat down across from him. No anger, just curiosity. And something else, peace that was trying to grow roots. "Thank you," she said first, "for returning it, after so long." He lowered his eyes. "I should have done it sooner." Emily nodded slowly. "Maybe, but you still did it." She reached into her bag and took out the photograph, the one of her, her mother, and her father. This was taken a week before he disappeared. I was only 4. Blake stared at the photo, his hands trembling. I kept that picture with me all these years. I didn't know your names, but I remembered your faces. She smiled faintly. I always wondered where it went. That photo meant a lot to my mom. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping coffee neither of them tasted. Then Emily said something unexpected. When I was a teenager, we started receiving checks. Small amounts, never more than a few $100s, always unsigned. They came once a year, for 20 years. Blake looked up shocked. That was me. Emily nodded, tears welling. I figured, especially after I saw your name on the police report. You were the Mr. B the bank could never trace. He looked down, ashamed. It wasn't enough. She reached across the table, placed her hand on his. It was more than you know.
The confession. Blake sighed. I've been haunted by that day, not just for the money, but because I saw the man. I watched him drop the wallet. I could have run after him, but I didn't. Emily squeezed his hand gently. You were struggling. My father, he would have understood. Would he? Asked Blake. She smiled. He helped everyone, even when he didn't have time. I think he would have bought you a meal. Blake laughed softly, the first time in years. Then Emily took something from her bag, a small envelope. Inside, it was a note, handwritten, faded, but unmistakable. To whoever finds this wallet, if you need the money, take it. But please return the photo. It means the world to me. Signed, David Harris. Blake stared at it, stunned. You mean he wrote this? Emily nodded. We found the note years later in his desk drawer. He had a habit of putting little messages in his belongings. Blake's voice cracked. I never saw it, but I think I felt it anyway. The walk. After coffee, they walked together by the river. No heavy words, just light footsteps and quiet healing. Emily turned to him. What do you plan to do next? Blake looked up at the sky. Live the years I have left, not just to survive, but to honor the one I took from. I want to teach, not in a classroom, just with time. I've got stories. I've got lessons. Maybe someone needs them. Emily nodded. I think a lot of people do. A few months passed. The winter snow melted into the quiet gray of early spring. And in a community center on the east side of the city, Blake stood in front of a group of young men, most of them in rehab, some fresh out of juvenile detention. He wasn't a counselor. He wasn't a pastor. He wasn't a man with credentials. He was just someone who had walked through fire and made it out the other side.
Everyone in this room has something they regret, he began. The group was silent. Eyes watched him, skeptical but listening. I stole something once, from a man I didn't know, and I carried the weight of it for 30 years. He paused, looked around. But I also carried something else, the chance to make it right. And I'm here to tell you it's never too late. After class, one of the boys approached him. He was tall, barely 20, tattoos on his neck, eyes filled with anger and exhaustion. "You really give all that money back?" the boy asked. Blake nodded. "Every cent, bit by bit." "And it fixed everything?" Blake shook his head. "No, but it fixed something inside me." The letter. That night, Blake sat by the window of his small apartment and wrote a letter. He wrote it with care, like someone writing to an old friend or a ghost. "Dear David, I never knew you, but you've been with me for half my life. I took what wasn't mine, and though I tried to return it, time moved faster than I could. You gave me more than $320. You gave me a second chance. I hope wherever you are, you know this. I didn't forget. I kept your photo. I kept your memory. And now I give something back. Not to you directly, but to the world you left behind. I teach. I listen. I carry stories forward. Thank you for your silence. It spoke louder than judgment ever could. Blake. He folded the letter, placed it in a small wooden box beside the wallet, and locked the drawer.
The new wallet. Weeks later, at the center, after another session, Blake noticed one of the boys had dropped his wallet. A simple black one, nearly empty. Just an ID, a transit card, and $5. Blake picked it up, walked across the room, tapped the boy on the shoulder. "You dropped this." The boy blinked, took it with hesitation. You didn't take anything?" Blake smiled. "No, son, that's not who I am anymore." The boy stared at him for a second, then nodded. "Thanks." That moment, brief, simple, meant everything. Because once Blake had taken a wallet that didn't belong to him. Now he returned one, and with it he returned a part of himself. Final scene. Years later, Blake passed away quietly, in a small room surrounded by books and letters. At his memorial, Emily Harris stood up and told the story of a man who once made a mistake, but chose not to let it define him. She said, "He believed in redemption, he believed in second chances, and he gave more than he ever took." She placed a small photo on the table beside the urn. The old one, of her, her mother, and David. Beside it, a new photo, of Blake, smiling, surrounded by the boys he mentored. Two men, two wallets, two lives that crossed only for a moment, but changed everything. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Prism English. We'll see you next time, where English isn't just learned, it's lived.